A woman saying no shouldn't be revolutionary, but somehow it still is. Not because she broke a heart, but because she broke a pattern. He stood beneath 1,000 fairy lights, holding a diamond ring that had cost 3 months of his salary, friends hidden in the bushes with smartphones, a string quartet playing her favorite song. The restaurant had cleared a space, decorated it like a movie scene. She looked at him. He waited for the moment he was promised. The gasp, the tears, the yes. Instead, she whispered, "I can't." The crowd froze. The music faltered. Someone chuckled nervously, thinking it was a joke. It wasn't. She turned and walked away, her heels echoing against the marble floor like a slow, ceremonial rebellion. By the next morning, her face was everywhere, viral, condemned, a symbol of ingratitude, selfish, damaged, feminist nutjob. No one asked why she said no. They only cared that she said it. Because in a world scripted by tradition, a woman's no isn't just personal, it's political. It shakes the very foundation we pretend is natural. Stay with me, because what you're about to hear isn't just about marriage. It's about power, identity, control, and the invisible systems we're all born into without consent. We're going to explore why a simple no from a woman can feel like a cultural earthquake, why society reacts so violently to choice, and how this one decision forces us to confront everything we thought was natural about love, gender, and freedom. If you've ever questioned the script you were handed, stay till the end. The answers may not comfort you, but they will wake you up. Marriage, for all its romance, still carries the weight of unspoken expectations. Obedience, order, conformity, a quiet surrender to the role written long before she was born. So when a woman walks away from that, especially in public, something in the social fabric tears. Not everyone will admit it, but deep down, we sense it. That no isn't just rejection, it's revelation. Maybe she didn't reject a man. Maybe she rejected a myth. Was marriage ever about love, or was it about predictability? Why does her refusal feel like a threat to everyone else's choices? Maybe it's not the woman who terrifies us. Maybe it's the mirror she holds up. This story isn't really about her. It's about us, and what's revealed when someone finally dares to walk off script. Long before a woman is asked to marry, she is told how to become the kind of woman worth marrying. It begins in childhood. Fairy tales where the princess is chosen, never choosing. Her beauty is her worth. Her silence is her strength. Her reward? A man who saves her from her own story. This isn't fiction, it's social programming. Nietzsche called morality a tool used by the weak to control the strong. But what if morality, the script of good womanhood, was designed not by the weak, but by the powerful to maintain their structure? The ideal woman has always been an invention, carved by the needs of her era. In ancient times, she was property. In Victorian England, she was purity. In the 1950s, she became domestic perfection. Always smiling, dinner ready, children neat, obedient to her husband's logic. Even today, she has not escaped. She has only evolved. Now she is an aesthetic, a curated profile, a perfect mix of ambitious and accommodating, sexy but modest, independent but not so much that she's threatening. Instagram celebrates this new version of obedience with soft lighting and passive captions. Just a girl in love, wifey vibes, lucky to be his. What appears empowering is often another layer of performance, a cage disguised as choice. Nietzsche believed that societal constructs enslave the individual by presenting man-made ideals as universal truths. So when a woman says, "I don't want this," she isn't just breaking a tradition, she's shattering a symbol. She unmasks the machinery. Rejecting marriage for her may feel deeply personal, but to society it's political. It's an act of defiance against an archetype engineered for centuries. An archetype that guarantees social order. And when someone refuses to play their part, the illusion weakens. It's like waking up on stage in the middle of a play and realizing the script isn't yours. The lines don't fit your mouth, the costume itches, the lights burn your skin. And still the director insists, keep performing, To walk off that stage isn't just scary, it's heresy. The audience doesn't know whether to applaud, gasp, or look away. Because once one person walks off, others might follow. Rejection on the surface looks harmless. A personal choice, a simple number. But society rarely sees it that way, especially not when the no is aimed at something as foundational as marriage. This isn't neutrality, it's rebellion. A woman turning away from marriage isn't just closing a door, she's questioning the entire building, the architecture, the reason it exists in the first place. Nietzsche spoke of the will to power, the drive within all systems, individuals, and institutions to assert dominance, to preserve themselves. When a woman says no to marriage, she's not just declining a proposal. She's threatening a system that believes it deserves obedience. Marriage, for centuries, has been a structure of power. Politically, it secured alliances. Economically, it consolidated property. Socially, it organized labor, inheritance, and gender roles. A woman's role within it was rarely questioned. She was expected to contribute her loyalty, her body, her time, and in return receive protection, status, and purpose. When that agreement is refused, the power dynamic begins to tremble, and trembling systems respond with force, not always violently, often subtly, through language, through ridicule. She'll end up alone. She hates men. She's just bitter, high maintenance, difficult, or the classic crazy cat lady. Labels like these aren't random. They're weapons, tools of conformity, disguised as concern or comedy. They function like social antibodies, attacking anything that threatens the host. Psychology calls it norm enforcement. When someone steps outside what's expected, others feel a surge of discomfort. Not because that person is wrong, but because they're unpredictable. And unpredictability destabilizes the illusion of control. Take Emma Watson, for example. When she declared herself self-partnered instead of single, it was a quiet, personal reframing. Not an attack, not a manifesto. But the response? Mockery. Headlines dripping with sarcasm. Viral jokes. Think pieces dissecting her crisis. Why did it matter so much? Because language creates reality. And when someone changes the language, refuses to see partnership as salvation, it opens the terrifying possibility that fulfillment isn't tied to romance or a ring. That's not just unconventional, that's revolutionary. A woman saying no to marriage isn't attacking men. She's challenging a narrative. She's refusing to participate in a game where the rules were written before she was born. And that rejection reveals the system's fragility. Because if one person can opt out, maybe it was never sacred to begin with. Maybe it was just a habit, and habits break, especially when they no longer make sense. Marriage is often portrayed as the ultimate act of love, the final chapter of every fairy tale, the reward for being good, attractive, loyal. But peel back the sentimentality and something colder, more calculated, begins to appear. Historically, marriage wasn't about love, it was about leverage. It was a transaction, a binding contract, a means of consolidating wealth, land, alliances. In ancient Rome, women moved from the authority of their fathers to the control of their husbands, literally transferred like property. In feudal societies, marriage meant securing a bloodline. In colonial empires, it was a mechanism for inheritance and racial purity. The idea of romantic love didn't even enter the picture until centuries later. And even then, it was filtered through the lens of duty. Nietzsche would have seen this structure as a form of moral domestication, not designed to elevate the individual but to tame them. Marriage standardized human relationships. It created predictability, order, roles. You marry, you produce, you behave. Everyone knows what to expect and what's expected of them. That's not freedom. That's control, dressed as commitment. French philosopher Michel Foucault described disciplinary institutions, systems that subtly shape behavior, not through force, but through normalization. Prisons, schools, hospitals, places where the individual becomes an object to be managed. Marriage belongs to this category, not because it locks people in rooms, but because it locks them into roles. The husband, the wife, the good parent, the selfless partner. Labels that come with rules, duties, and quiet punishments for non-compliance. Even today, the machinery remains. It's just more glamorous. Social media floods our feeds with choreographed proposals, algorithm-friendly engagement shoots, and curated wedding reels. Comments flood in like applause. So happy for you. Finally, you deserve this. Behind those messages lies a subtle pressure. Marriage becomes a milestone you must hit, a badge of normalcy, a signal that you're doing life correctly. Women in particular are targeted by this invisible clock. If she's not married by 30, whispers begin. If she focuses on her career, she's warned not to wait too long. If she chooses otherwise, she's either pitied or pathologized. This isn't about love, it's about predictability. Marriage helps society organize itself. It tames chaos by assigning roles. And those roles, once internalized, become self-policing. We don't need to be forced into cages anymore. We carry them within us, made of expectation, reinforced by repetition, rewarded by applause, and sometimes we call that cage a dream. Imagine a man who did everything right. He built a career, gained respect, followed the blueprint. He was taught that success included a woman at his side, devoted, admiring, grateful, not just a partner, but a symbol of arrival, proof that he mattered. For centuries, men were told they must conquer land, status, women. Nietzsche's Übermensch, the overman, was meant to rise above these constructs, to create his own values. But the modern man rarely does this. Instead, he inherits his identity from external validation. His power is often measured by what he owns, who he leads, and who loves him back. So when a woman steps outside the script, when she refuses to orbit him, he doesn't just lose her. He loses the mirror that reflected his worth. Jordan Peterson's rise didn't happen in a vacuum. His popularity is a symptom of male disorientation in a world where old roles are collapsing, where being a provider is no longer enough, where dominance no longer guarantees admiration, where being needed isn't automatic, it must be earned. Peterson speaks directly to men who feel unmoored, adrift in a landscape that no longer worships their strength or rewards their quiet suffering. For many, he offers structure, meaning, purpose, but others hear it as a last gasp of a fading narrative, one where power was identity and obedience was love. When a woman rejects marriage, she doesn't just break tradition, she disrupts an entire system of meaning. For some men, that's terrifying, not because she's wrong, but because she's no longer playing the role he needs her to play. And so, he begins to question everything. Was his success real? Was his value earned or assigned? Who is he when he is not needed? When no one waits for him at the door, calling him home? The fear isn't that she doesn't love him. The fear is that she never needed to. And if she doesn't need him, maybe the whole story he was living by was just that, a story, not a truth. The woman who says no walks away, but she doesn't walk into paradise. She walks into silence, into a space with no map, no applause, no pre-written lines. She has rejected the script, but now must write her own, without a chorus to validate it. Nietzsche spoke of true freedom not as joy, but as standing at the edge of the abyss, where nothing is certain, where meaning is no longer handed down from the heavens or inherited from institutions. To be free is to lose the comfort of illusion, to stand naked before existence and not look away. This is the territory she enters. When a woman says no to marriage, she doesn't automatically step into empowerment. Often, she steps into isolation, the dinners she's no longer invited to, the family conversations that subtly exclude her, the questions she grows tired of answering. When will you settle down? Why are you still alone? Freedom carries weight. It doesn't always look beautiful. Sometimes it looks like being misunderstood. Sometimes it looks like watching everyone else move forward while you remain still, questioning everything. Simone de Beauvoir lived most of her life with Jean-Paul Sartre, but they never married. Their partnership defied convention, yet it was never simple. She chronicled her life with brutal honesty, her desires, her doubts, her endless wrestling with identity and expectation. Was she free? Or did she simply choose a different kind of exile? To live without roles is to live without shields. Society no longer protects you. You are no longer digestible. You are an anomaly. And anomalies often walk alone. This isn't a cautionary tale. It's a mirror, a confrontation with what freedom actually feels like when stripped of fantasy. It may not be the easy road. It may not be the celebrated one. But it is real. And for those who choose it, not because they were forced, but because they saw through the illusion, perhaps the loneliness isn't exile at all. Perhaps it's the price of truth. Human beings crave order, not just in their surroundings, but in their stories. We need to believe the world follows a script, that people grow up, fall in love, marry, have children, retire, and die peacefully. It's not just comforting, it's survival. Order reduces uncertainty. Predictability reduces fear. From an evolutionary standpoint, we are wired to spot patterns, to identify threats. Anomalies disrupt those patterns. They introduce doubt, and doubt is dangerous. Marriage in this light isn't just tradition, it's ritualized certainty. It reassures everyone watching that life is unfolding as it should. So when a woman steps outside that narrative, the reaction is rarely neutral. It's often intense, emotional, even hostile. Not because she's doing something wrong, but because she becomes a symbol of dissonance, a reminder of the choices others never questioned or never dared to make. Psychologists call this cognitive dissonance, the mental discomfort we feel when confronted with ideas or behaviors that contradict our own. We don't like to be reminded that there are other ways to live, especially if we've sacrificed for the one we chose. The woman who says no to marriage doesn't just walk away from a ring, she becomes a mirror. She reflects back the lie many agreed to live with. What would happen if you stopped performing? If you paused the play, dropped the lines you've memorized, and stared into the silence that followed? What would you become if you burned the script? Maybe you've never questioned it. The milestones, the rituals, the silent checklist handed to you before you even knew you had a choice. The idea that success means partnership, that happiness means settling down, that value is proven by who chooses you. But what if you chose yourself? Not out of defiance, but out of clarity. This isn't about hating marriage. It's not about walking away from love. It's about waking up, about choosing with consciousness instead of compliance, about asking whether the life you're living is yours or one inherited from fear, tradition, or the eyes of others. Nietzsche wrote, "Become who you are, not who they told you to be, not who you perform to survive, but who you were before the scripts, before the labels, before the fear." To become who you are, you must first accept that you don't know who that is yet. You must step into uncertainty, not with arrogance, but with curiosity. The woman who said no didn't destroy anything. She revealed something. Not that marriage is wrong, but that choice is real. And a real choice terrifies us when we've lived our lives convinced we had none. Maybe she isn't terrifying because she rejects love. Maybe she terrifies us because she loves herself enough to ask if love should come in a box. Maybe she is the shadow we see in the mirror, the part of us still buried, still quiet, still wondering what it would feel like to stop performing. Not everyone will walk away, not everyone should, but everyone should ask, who am I when the applause fades? And who would I be if I stopped pretending? She stood in front of him. He held the ring. The world waited for her to say yes, and she didn't. That moment, once seen as rebellion, now feels like revelation. Because maybe it wasn't him she rejected. Maybe it wasn't love, or commitment, or connection. Maybe it was the myth that a woman's life only begins when someone else chooses her. That fulfillment is found in structure. That worth requires a witness. She said no, not to a man, but to a narrative, one that had shaped generations, quietly, relentlessly, with promises dressed as destiny. And maybe the fear wasn't about her decision. Maybe it was about what that decision revealed, because if she's not wrong, if her life is still meaningful, still rich, still whole without playing the part, then what else have we mistaken for truth? What other scripts have we followed so blindly We forgot we were even acting. What systems have we upheld, not because we believed in them, but because questioning them felt too lonely? Maybe we've never needed answers. Maybe we've just needed the courage to ask better questions, to sit in the discomfort of not knowing, to accept that rupture is not the end, but the beginning of something real. Truth doesn't arrive with clarity. It arrives with silence, with a pause, with the moment you finally stop performing. And sometimes all it takes to tear down the stage is one person who dares to walk off it. If this made you uncomfortable, good. Discomfort is where awakening begins. This wasn't just a story about one woman. It was a story about all of us, about the roles we play, the systems we serve, and the truths we've been too afraid to question. So if this spoke to something deep in you, something you can't quite name yet, don't scroll away. Subscribe. Leave a comment. Tell me what you see when you look in the mirror she held up. Because this conversation isn't over. It's just getting started.